right. So losing a job at any time in your life can be very upsetting. Losing a job when you're over 50 years old can be traumatic. So, like most of us over the age of 50, we've probably been working since we were a teenager. I got my first job where I got a W 2 when I was 16, working at a department store, and I've been going ever since. So at the age of 55, I was laid off from a really good job. I had spent all of these decades getting degrees, getting lots of experience, climbing the career ladder, moving to different companies so I could get more experience and earn more money. I was really at the top of my game for the personal goals that I set for myself. But then, because life is so interesting, out of nowhere, I was laid off. And so I hit the ground running and really worked hard to find another position. I was hoping to get this knocked out by a month. So after several months had gone by, I was not having the success that I wanted to have. And man, let me tell you, the emotional roller coaster that happens when you are out of work and when you are over a certain age, it just really takes a toll on you. But now that a year has gone by and I've gone through a series of emotions and personal setbacks and also personal achievements, I can sit here and tell you that now that a year has gone by, I have gone through all the stages of grief, let's say, as it pertains to losing a job. And I have also taken this opportunity to grow personally, not professionally, but personally. And I think that's really the key. I mean, the first thought that I had was, I am too young to retire. 55 years old, yes, there are a lot of people that retire. And by retire, I mean they stop working full time. Maybe they work part-time. Maybe they've invested really well and they just don't have to work anymore. Maybe they were in the military or they were working for law enforcement. And so it's really feasible to be able to retire in your mid-50s. But for people outside of this arena, I think for the most part, we don't anticipate retiring until probably at least 62, and many of us probably 65. You know, that good old Social Security, we want to wait a little bit longer so we get a bigger payout. When you lose a job and you're in your 50s, it is really challenging to find a very similar role to what you had because now your age is against you, which of course I didn't even realize. It didn't even occur to me that this was going to be a thing, but it definitely was a thing. So I straddled that fence of thinking, should I really push forward and do different things to make myself appear younger or shorten my resume so it looks like my work history is shorter? Or should I, change my looks so that I appear younger visually? I mean, you go through all of these emotions and all of these thoughts. And then I went through a time when I was just feeling completely empty. Now, since I was laid off in June of last year, I had the whole summer to, do extensive job searching. I received unemployment. I was not worried at all, especially since one of my coworkers who also got laid off found a new position within 2 weeks. And we are both the same age. So I was really hopeful. But then as it gets closer to the holidays, you find yourself getting a little more depressed. And then when you round that corner into January and you're in the cold winter months, you can get really depressed. And this is absolutely where I found myself. I felt empty. I felt like a complete failure. And it really wasn't so much about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do for money? It was more, what am I going to do to contribute both to the household and also what am I going to do to make myself feel meaningful? If I don't have a job, if I'm not working, I don't have any worth. I'm not contributing to society. I think it's totally ingrained in us, especially people of our generation who are 50 and over, that we define ourselves by our work. And it doesn't matter what type of work you do, whether you are in a service industry or you are a professional or you are in the corporate world or you just work with your hands all day. It truly doesn't matter. We go through the same steps every day. We get up at a certain time. We go to work, whether we want to or not. No matter how tired we are, no matter what's going on in our personal lives, we get up and we go to work every single day. And this just repeats on a loop for year after year and decade after decade. So when that suddenly and unexpectedly gets taken away from you without your permission, then it feels just like a whack in the head. And you feel like, what have I done wrong? What am I worth? Where am I going? and you start just reevaluating all of your choices in life, it really does play a mind game on you. And I hated being in that space, that personal space in my head. I also would find myself going on to LinkedIn and seeing what was going on with past coworkers or the last couple companies I worked for. And, it just made me angry and frustrated and resentful. And I just did not like feeling that way. So, having said all this, here we are a year later. It is now June 2025, and I'm in a very different place and space in my head and in my heart. I finally got over that hump of feeling like I was not useful or I was not worthy because I was not working full time. It is a hard pattern to get out of in terms of your thought process, in terms of the things that you do every day. It becomes muscle memory, getting up and going to work every single day for 40 years. And when you don't have that anymore, you don't really know what to do with yourself, at least right away. So let me tell you of the positive changes that are now in my life after having been laid off a year ago. First of all, I am feeling very present with everything around me. I'm sure it helps that it is summer or almost summer where I live, and it is nice weather and I'm able to be outside more. But I've just been kind of practicing, whether on purpose or probably subconsciously, being more present in truly positive moments in my life. And this includes noticing all the small things. Now, this might sound really boring to a lot of you, but I just love going outside and sitting in a chair and just observing nature. I'm very fortunate to have a nice backyard, and I have bird feeders, and I have a bird bath, and I have a little pond, and I'm just able to sit there and slow my mind down and take all that in. And again, that is something that is quite challenging to do when you've spent 40 years going, and everything is on a very specific schedule. Even when you go on vacation, you're on a schedule. You know that your vacation is only a week or 2 weeks, and you have a certain amount of time to do all of the fun things that you wanted to do. You have a certain amount of time to schedule relaxation, and you're constantly looking at your phone or your watch or your calendar to see how much time you have left before that vacation ends. Well, now, if you're not working, you're in a situation where those things don't even matter anymore. And instead of getting so bogged down with that leftover feeling of, I need to be doing something, I need to be productive, I have finally started to succeed in letting some of that go. Now, I'm not 100% there yet. It's probably going to take another year, maybe 2 more years to get in that mindset. But I am definitely in a better place than I was 6 months ago, let's say. Now, one thing I have done both purposely and probably a little bit unconsciously is stop listening to all the noise. And what do I mean by noise? I mean news. I used to be a huge news junkie. I had probably 8 different news sites that I looked at every single day, not to mention Instagram and Facebook, and it just became too overwhelming. And anybody who lives, at least in the United States, knows how troublesome everything is in the news. And I just decided I just can't look at it anymore. I can't hear it. Occasionally I will get an alert on my phone about a major news event, but even then, I don't pay as much attention to those things as I used to. And oh my gosh, I am an anxious person by nature, but I have to tell you that my anxiety has definitely gone down a few notches. And I know that paying attention to all that noise out there, from celebrities to terrible things going on in the world to politics, it was doing me no good. It did not enhance my life. And because I'm not paying attention to that, I'm not noticing anything missing from my life. So that is really a good thing. Another thing I started doing was spending a lot more time listening to music. Now, I'm a huge music lover. I've always loved music. I've always had a great music collection. But in the last, 3, 4 years, probably since maybe even COVID, I almost never listened to music. I basically stopped listening to all music. And I would find myself listening to podcasts quite a bit, which are great. But the podcasts I was listening to were upsetting. Again, they were about current events and things that are wrong in the world and people arguing or debating, and it would just get my blood pressure boiling. But now I have been intentionally going back and listening to very specific music that gave me joy throughout the different years of my life. I've been having fun watching videos on YouTube of people who have reactions to different music. I found that really kind of refreshing, and it's interesting to hear their take on a song that I've known for decades, but they've never heard before. When you listen to music and it's the kind of music that gives you goosebumps or it makes you feel really nostalgic or emotional, I think there's something that happens inside of you that kind of changes the fabric of your emotions, at least during that short time. And I find that I feel really connected to whatever feelings and experiences I am thinking about during that time. It's been really grounding for me. So I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but I just have found that listening to music more intentionally and just really slowing down to enjoy the music, no matter what genre, has just been really helpful to me. And it's great that I'm able to pay attention to those things again. I have an interesting story. So maybe over 20 years ago, I had taken a job that was just not for me. It was a longer commute. It was a job that I really wasn't qualified to do, but they hired me anyway. And I was extremely, extremely stressed out over this job. Thankfully, I only had the job 9 months or so, and they let me go. But again, this was a time when I was much younger, and I found a job within just a couple of months. So it was no big deal. But I remember during this time, because I was so stressed out about this job, that I missed an entire season. What I mean by that is it was fall where I live, and the drive I had to work was in the country, and the leaves, I think, were stunning, but I missed it. I was so focused on that job and what I needed to do and how stressed out I was that spending quite a bit of time commuting in the country where the fall leaves were majestic, I missed it. I just didn't even see it. I probably looked at it a million times, but it just didn't register. And since fall is my favorite time of the year, I was just sickened that I had missed fall. And so I don't ever want to be in that kind of place again in my mind. And just thinking about work and going through that rat race and running on that hamster wheel and missing out on things in life is just not something that I'm interested in doing anymore. So another thing I've started doing recently is I've been cooking more. So I've always liked to cook. I'm a fairly decent cook. I make up recipes all the time. And now that it's nice out, I love to grill outside. My dad taught me how to grill, and that's just something I do many days of the week during warm weather. I just grill a lot of meat and have it on hand, and it's just great. But lately, I've been purposely seeking out specific recipes of things I have not previously made before, things that my family would like and enjoy, and it's been great. And I've been successful, and I've been making some really good, interesting food lately. And I used to get stressed out by working in the kitchen because I was always on a schedule, I was always on a deadline. And yesterday, for example, I spent like 2.5 hours in my kitchen, cutting up vegetables and preparing a very specific sauce. And I had to monitor it for a couple hours. And I actually found it extremely relaxing and therapeutic. So yeah, cooking. Another thing I've been doing is I'm spending more time reading. Now, I've gone through stages in my life where I read quite a bit, and then I go maybe a couple years without reading anything significant. I also go through stages where I read fiction, and then I read a lot of nonfiction. It just depends on what mood I'm in. Well, a week ago, I walked over to my bookshelf, and I have lots of really interesting books that I've picked up over the years. I always like to go to used bookstores and get used books. And I was starting to feel bad because I hadn't read any of these books. I mean, I may have read one or two of the books, but there were just so many books sitting there staring at me saying, "Why aren't you reading me?" So I randomly picked up a book and I started reading it. And then I just kind of fell into that groove, when you're in a comfortable chair and you have a really good book. And on that particular day, it was raining out. So I read like half the book in an afternoon, and it was the most fantastic feeling ever. Now, I probably would not have done that had I still been working and going through the motions of doing everything and being on a schedule. So I'm just so thankful that I was able to just sit with that moment of reading a book in a comfortable chair and just experiencing a story and kind of getting lost in it. I mean, there's nothing like it. So I'm a guitar player. I have been playing guitar since I was 13 years old. Now, granted, I took probably a 15-year break from playing guitar because, life and job stuff just got in the way. But about 4 years ago, I picked it back up again. And to get inspired, I actually bought a new guitar. And since then, in the 4 years, I have bought and sold, and I have a collection, I will say that. So I have just been immersing myself in not only enjoying the guitars that I have, I've also learned how to repair guitars and service my own guitars. And I've also gone down the huge rabbit hole of music theory. And so I have taught myself through YouTube, of course, so many really good foundational music theory topics as it relates to guitar. And because I am an improviser when I play, I have just been able to expand my musical vocabulary exponentially, and it's been amazing. Not to mention, when I sit there and play, I can literally feel my blood pressure start to lower. I'm just so thankful that I have that outlet, that creative outlet that allows me to, again, be present, pay attention, find something that calms me down, and gets me away from that feeling of negativity and self-doubt. And then finally, I have been really doing, I think, an okay job of taking care of myself better. So, when you get to be over the age of 50, you really need to pay attention to your body. And if you aren't already sick or going through some type of medical issue, you're very fortunate. But our diets and our routines, at least here in the United States, are very unhealthy for the most part. And I think in this last year, I really fully, truly recognized that. And I was able to actually almost reprogram my brain into looking at sugar, let's say, for example, as complete poison. So while my family members still have sugar and it's sitting right out in front of me, from bakery cookies to birthday cakes, I won't have it. And I have to tell you that I cannot believe the difference of not having sugar for like a year and a half. I actually started this journey well before I was laid off, and I was able to lose 65 pounds so far. And I just keep going. And there's no gimmick and there's nothing trendy about what I'm doing. It's just avoiding sugar and not eating a lot of junk. And that's pretty much it. So, but I want to really pay attention to my health because I'm on the other side of that hill. I think we're well past midlife. And so if you aren't paying attention to your health and you're at this age, then it's definitely something to think about changing things in your life that will make you feel better, both physically and mentally. So that's what's changed in this last year since I've been laid off. I went from feeling restless, lonely, heartbroken, frustrated, angry, resentful, and feeling like a huge failure to really experiencing life by living in the present, doing things that give me peace, lower my blood pressure, make me feel good about myself, and where the constant need to look at my watch or my calendar is not a factor in how I live my life. I've cut out all the news. I've cut out all the drama. I've just learned to enjoy the things that really matter, at least to me, which has nothing to do with the outside world and all the craziness going on out there. So if any of this resonates with you, whether you are currently working or you've recently been laid off, or it's been a while since you lost a job, and any of this rings true for you, let me know in the comments below. Again, I just wanted to share what was going on with me personally, and I probably won't speak of this anymore on any future video because I feel like I've gone through kind of all the cycles of things like, that are typically associated with grief, let's say. I've gone through all those emotions and I've come out on the other side, and I definitely feel calmer, have more peace, and I'm just starting to enjoy life, the life that I created for myself, a little bit more every day. So if you're feeling really stressed out and down because you've lost a job, there is hope. And it definitely will take a while, and you're definitely going to have to do some self-reflection and a little bit of soul searching if you want to come out on the other end feeling a little bit better than you did prior to losing a job. So for what it's worth, that's my story. That's my 2 cents. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Noelle, and I will talk to you in the next video.